Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Nomofsky. On today's episode, we're discussing transitioning wealth to the next generation. So, Julia, if I was to do this, what do I need to think about before I decide the way I need to give?
There's a lot to think about. So first of all, like we were saying before the break, the things about your own well-being and your own financial plans, and then that tells you how much you can give. And then now you need to think about the tax implications of a gift. Is it make sense from a tax perspective to make that gift now in a big chunk, in little pieces? What's going on as far as your cash flow and tax implications? And then what do your children need and when? A lot of the parents I talk to might want to give a significant gift when their children graduate university, or they plan for things like weddings, which I always find very entertaining because they put it in their plan for, oh, when they're 25, I'm going to pay for a wedding for my child. And I keep saying, well, that's not as common anymore. It might be something a little later. So do you want to give them a gift anyways? Why are we giving them the gift? And what's it for? How are we going to start having conversations with them about that gift?
And so that's my next question. How and when do you start speaking with your children about a potential gift or inheritance? Because, that may backfire if your child knows that they're getting a huge gift in 6 months or 2 years or whatever.
Absolutely. So we have to think about the expectations that we're setting with our children. And that all kind of goes back to your own family values. That's where I always want to start with families, is saying, what are your values around money and gifting? What's the lesson you want to teach your child? And what are we doing first around those lessons? Whether, for some people, it's, well, I want to make sure that the child knows that they are financially independent and feels really confident before I give them a gift. And maybe I want it to be a surprise. Well, let's think about what that looks like first. And then as you approach that point where you're feeling like your child has achieved living through the values that you wanted to pass on, that's when you start having the conversation. But I don't like the idea of just surprising them with a check.
And surprises are awful. I don't like surprises. I prefer not to know of any surprises because typically they're bad. They're not on the good side. But I want to talk about the gift. What if the gift isn't money, isn't a check that you had just talked about, but it's actually a form of real estate, whether it's a house or a rental or something, or even an active business? How does that change the conversation?
Drastically changes the conversation. I see the real estate piece happening quite a bit in families from my own culture. Chinese families often will purchase real estate and they're going to plan to give this to their children at some point in time. But we still need to think about, what are the tax implications? Is this a burden to a certain extent that your child really has the capacity to or the desire to carry? Are you giving them something that they think will actually be a gift? Is this a home that has got like a leaky roof and isn't in the right location where they want to live, or does it have tenants and they never wanted to be a landlord? You need to be able to have the right conversations with them. Don't assume that a gift that you would enjoy is the gift that your child would enjoy. And of course, that goes even more so towards an active business. A lot of families have this business that's been passed down from generation to generation, or a farm, and there's an expectation that this child or all the children are going to take over, and we haven't actually talked to them about it. And then we surprise them with this expectation at some point, and they might say, well, actually, I was going to be a police officer, or I've been going to law school because I meant to go to law school, or I'm leaving the country. I'm not interested. We need to be having conversations far in advance about what people want, and recognize our children as whole humans who make adult decisions about their lives and what they want.
And I think a lot of that has to do with your ethnic background as well. A lot of parents have this vision for their kids whether it's right or wrong, they haven't discussed it with their child, and this is what is expected of them. But the other thing too is, if you're gifting a property, especially if it's in the United States, you have to understand what the rules are so that you're not paying taxes in both countries, because that becomes an even larger burden upon your children. We're going to talk about that when we return, so please don't go away. We'll be right back.